Hello and welcome to another Bodgit and Leggit video. Yes, we finally have it. The lovely, sexy head gasket. Just look at that for a minute. Just pause the video and just look. Right, what we're going to do in this video is we're going to show you how to get your compression ratio, and in turn how to know what size head gasket you need. I kind of touched upon this in another video, but I didn't really explain it very well, and I'm going to do it a slightly different way, an easier way, I think, this time. So we're going to go through the measurements you need, we're going to go through how you work it out, and then essentially from that you can work out how thick you need your head gasket. Now what this is a 5-layer head gasket. It's a metal head gasket, and it's 1.8 mil. Now what you need to do is, depending on your car, you need to find out first what head gaskets are actually available, because you know they might not be exactly the right size you need. I was lucky enough that this is the exact size I need. Now with this, there is a chance you could buy a couple of these and you could actually make one yourself by taking these layers apart. So that you can kind of do it that way depending on your car, but again you just need to know what size head gaskets are available, and there's a few measurements we can do, and then once we do the measurements, that will tell us our compression ratio, which then in turn will tell us how thick we need our head gasket. Now there's loads of things to consider. This is, even though this is quite a high horsepower engine, it is still more or less a standard build. If we had to do overlap with our valves and stuff and dished out pistons, then measurements get very complicated very quickly. We don't have to worry about that with this engine. So if you've got oversized valves and you've got big high lift cams, you're going to have to worry about overlap. That is a different video altogether. This is basically going to show you on kind of a standard engine how to do it. Even a high performance engine, but still kind of standard cams, you know, standard, all that kind of stuff. The original problem with having this, if you haven't followed the video series, is we've got a 1 mil piston protrusion. So what that means is our pistons are sticking out a block by 1 mil, which essentially means over the years the block has been skimmed too many times, and essentially our pistons are protruding. You have a couple of options. You can either get the pistons skimmed, but even when you get the piston skimmed, you're still going to have to do what we're doing to find out your compression ratio, because once you get these pistons skimmed, you can't go with your standard head gasket, because you're going to actually affect the dish that's inside your piston. So you still essentially have to do this. The only reason I don't particularly want to take my pistons out is because I have to strip the engine again, and it's actually a lot more money to get these skimmed than it is to buy a head gasket. And like I said, lucky enough we had the right head gasket. So let's get cracking into it, how to do it, what measurements we need, and yeah, get building this baby. Right, not only are we trying to do this video, I'm also dying of the man flu, and as we all know, that is the worst thing in the world. I'm struggling to breathe and just everything about it, so hopefully you can understand me in this video. Right, we don't particularly need anything kind of special to do this. You do need some sort of vernier gauge, digital ones preferably, because they're just a lot easier to read. But essentially what we need to know, and we've got it all written down here. You can see that's my daughter's signature on this piece of paper. Anyway, right, there's only a few things we need to know. We need to know the stroke, the bore, the deck height, the head gasket thickness, the piston volume, the head volume, and the gasket bore diameter. Now that might sound all kind of complicated, but it really isn't. We'll be working in inches, as it's just easier to work in inches to do this, because all the calculators, they're in inches, and inches are actually a finer measurement than millimeters, but that's by the by. Now the first thing we need to do is the stroke, and what essentially the stroke is, it's how far the pistons move up and down in your cylinder. Now you can find out the stroke of your engine online, very simple, but if you're doing, you know, if you're putting special pistons in, or you're stroking the engine, you're doing something, you can't rely off the online version. My stroke is going to be exactly the same as what it would be from the factory, because I haven't changed anything. I've got bigger pistons, but that doesn't affect your stroke. We've still got the same bottom end. We've still got everything we need. We are looking for an 8-to-1 ratio. Now you can go 10-to-1 with a turbo engine. I know people are going to say you can't, but can I assure you you can. You do have to start changing your rods. You do have to start changing your camshafts. You know, there is a lot to do with it, but you can. But we don't need to do that. We're just concentrating on getting 8-to-1 or as close as possible. The next thing we need to know is our bore. Now, essentially, your bore is how wide your bore is. Now, we've got 1 mil oversized piston, so again, it's very easy to work out from the standard, but we're going to measure it. Next thing is we need to know our deck height, and what that means is how far our pistons are sticking up or so protruding, or actually are they below or are they level. Then we need to know the thickness of your head gasket. This is where it gets a little bit tricky, because this is a metal head gasket. This is a 1.8 mil head gasket. This, once you squeeze the head and down, this doesn't move. This will stay 1.8 mil. If you've got a normal kind of like a paper gasket, it's not essentially paper, but you know what I mean, that will actually, as you tighten down, that will actually shrink a little bit. So you need to know your shrink value of your head gasket. Now that is dependent on who makes it and everything. So if you don't have a metal head gasket, you're going to have to find that information out from the people you get the head gasket from. Then what do we need? We need our piston volume CC. So if you've got a dished out piston like we have here, we need to know that. Then we need to know our CC volume on our head. And the last thing we need to know is the bore of your head gasket. So I'm going to go through each one of these. I'm going to show you how to do it, and then we can work out how thick or how thin we need a head gasket. The thicker your head gasket, the lower compression ratio will be. The thinner your head gasket, the higher compression ratio will be. But what you do have to do before you do this is, if you've got protruding pistons, and I've done it in another video, you need to check how much your valves clearance. You need to check your valve clearance, which is vitally important. I've done that in another video, and we're going to be absolutely fine. You do need 40 thou minimum valve clearance, and then you're not going to have an issue. But again, that's another video we've done already. We're just going to show you how to work out our compression ratio in this one. Now, the way we work out our stroke. Now, again, if you've got special pistons which are dished for your valves and stuff, it might not work this way, but if you've got kind of ordinary pistons, this is going to work for you absolutely fine. What we need to do is we need to figure out how much the pistons come up. It really is as simple as that. And the easiest way I found to do it is I'm going to get 2 head bolts and just kind of screw them down, not all the way, just a little bit of the way, opposite corners. Get a metal ruler. And I'm going to put the metal ruler across the 2. I have to be very careful because I'm not going to squeeze these hard, because I don't want to damage the head bolts. So they're just going to be just enough to hold it. So just like that. Same again with these ones. Again, just enough to hold it. Now, we're going to put our vernier gauge on here. Now, I think we're too low. Let me just see if we are. Might be all right. I know, we're fine. Right. So then just screw the vernier gauge to it. Now this is if you can't find online your stroke, or if you've maybe modified it in some way and your stroke is not going to be standard. This will just give you an idea of how to get your stroke. Now you want to get that vernier gauge in the middle, as best as you can, in the middle of the piston. Now all I'm going to do is let this slide down, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to feel it. So I'm just going to turn it on hopefully you can see this. If you can't, it's not really the end of the world, but you're going to get the idea. So I'm going to push the piston down, and when the number reaches its maximum number, I know I'm at the bottom. When the number starts coming back up, we know we've gone too far. So let me just slide that all the way down. So I'm going to keep pressure on it and slide it down. As we can see now, the number's going up. So I just need to get it to where it's going to show the biggest number. Now, I don't need to do this properly, I'm only showing you. Right, we'll say there. So then all I'm going to do is zero out the gauge and then just lift it up. And as you can see, the vernier is going to be reading a number. Lift it up all the way until the piston comes all the way up. And once it starts going down, the verniers are going to stay there. That will give you your stroke. Now, you can do it in millimeters or inches, it doesn't really matter. You do want an inch number, but if you've only got a millimeter gauge, you can then convert it very easy. So whatever that number reads, that is your stroke. And if you want to double check, you can double check with all your pistons. It's very simple. That's how to do your stroke. Now, we'll get to the next one. The other thing is you can get a lot of this information from your engine builder, because your engine builder is going to know all this because he has to drill it out to make them fit. If you've got oversized pistons like me, the actual bore is written on the pistons. So it's very easy. But if you don't, just move your pistons down. Don't have to be all the way. Again, get your vernier gauge out, zero it. So it's on 0. And then all we're doing is open it out until we get the widest point, which is there. And that essentially, again, now this is not going to be exact, because what you really do need to do is you need to push it out to get it so it's definitely the widest number. Lock this off so it can't move, and then you can actually read whatever you read there. That is your bore. Very, very simple, nothing to it. Next thing you want to do is get your deck height. Now, I've got protruding pistons. So what we need to remember is when we put this into our calculator, if your pistons are level, so essentially if your pistons are dead level with your block, once you put it on your piece of paper, so as we're doing it, we're writing down our numbers on our piece of paper. If your pistons are dead level with your block, you'll just write 0.00. Simple. If your pistons are below your block, so let's say they're 1 mil below, you will write 0.03, which is 1 mil in inches. If your pistons are protruding, like mine, you will write minus whatever the number happens to be. And again, the way to do it is get your verniers, rest your vernier, get your piston up to the top, put your vernier down, zero it, slide it down, and you can get whatever your number happens to be. Now again, I would suggest you do it on all 4 of your pistons and go around getting all the measurements just in case you've got a high or low spot, and go around, measure every single one of them. So if you're, like I said, if your pistons are protruding, you go minus. If your pistons are completely flat, you would just write 0.00. If your pistons are down, you would write, well, depending on your calculator, you'd maybe write plus 0.03, just depending on what your measurements is. But we'll go through this a bit better on the calculator, so I'll show you, but I'm just giving you an idea of what to look for. Next is our head gasket thickness. Now that's very simple. Again, you really do need a set of verniers. Get your verniers out and measure your head gasket. But this is important. If you haven't got a metal head gasket, a head gasket will compress slightly. So you need your compressed head gasket, not your actual true thickness. So we know this head gasket is 0.07, which is 1.8 mil in millimeters. It doesn't compress because it's metal. If you've got a normal head gasket, you're going to have to go to wherever you've got the head gasket from, or whoever manufactures that head gasket, and you're going to have to get them to show you or to tell you your compression on your head gasket, because every car is different. What we're going to do next is our gasket bore diameter. Now again, this was written on the package it's come from, but if you're unsure, you just do exactly the same as what we did with the piston bore size. You get your verniers, you open them out, you measure the widest point, and that is your gasket bore diameter. Very, very, very simple. And there's only two measurements left. We need our piston volume and we need our head volume. And I'm going to show you how to do that next. Now we're getting really into the technical things now, and you do have to be careful with this next stage. But to be fair, if you're getting really high quality pistons and stuff like that, like these are forged pistons, all the information, especially when you buy a top brand, all the information is either printed on the box or you can find it in their website. I'm only showing you this if you can't. So what we need to do is we need to find out the volume of the piston. So in other words, we need to find out how much space this is actually here. Now there is kind of very expensive tools for this, but you really do not need expensive tools. All you need to do is go down to your local chemist and buy some syringes. Now these syringes are in milliliters, but cc and milliliters are exactly the same. These will cost you a couple of quid, and you don't need to buy the expensive Berettas or anything like that. So what we need to do is we need some water, we need some plastic, and we need some grease. It really is as simple as that. Now this is where water tension can kind of get quite annoying, because you have to be careful, because you can get air pockets. This is the easiest way I found to do it, is turn your engine slightly to one side. So I'm going to turn my engine so it's angling towards the camera. So that means when I start filling this up, my air pocket is going to be up here. If your engine's turned towards you, you're going to have a big air pocket and you're not going to get this right. And this is crucial. Half a cc can affect massive amounts. So this is absolutely crucial. What I've done is just got a piece of perspex, and as you can see, I've got a tiny little groove cut into the top. That's all I've done. Nothing fancy, nothing at all. Now I know what my measurements is, and I've done it on every single one of my pistons, even though I knew they were all going to be the same, but it's just nice to check. I'm going to show you how to check one, and you're going to be able to do it. Now, if you've got special high compression pistons with in the middle, they're kind of tall, and you've got release for your valves, this isn't really going to work for you. You're going to have to rely on the information that the piston people have told you, but what they tell you, I can assure you, is going to be correct. So if you've got a completely flat piston, you don't have to worry about this stage. All you have to worry about is when you come to put it in. If you've got a completely flat piston, you just write 0, 0.0. Simple as that. I mean, it really does go without saying. If you've got a piston that kind of comes up, well, that's again where it becomes quite difficult, a dome piston. We've got a dish piston, so it's actually quite simple to do. All I'm going to do is get some grease. Now, this is moly grease. You don't want to be putting copper grease. You need to be putting smooth grease. And I'm putting it around the top of the piston to make a seal. So essentially like a rubber seal, you could say. So I'm going to put it around the piston. Just going to literally plop it on for the minute, and I'm going to clean it up in a second, because that's the easiest way to do it. There's no need to be neat, because you can clean it up a lot quicker than you can trying to be neat. So get a rag and just wipe inside your piston. Just as simple as that. As you can see, that is now my piston clean. Just take a little bit off there. Simple as that. Nothing to it. Really straightforward. Lovely. Now, this is where you want your engine slightly tilted, like I said, to one side. which my engine now is. The little groove I have cut in my plastic. You can use glass, but obviously glass can break. All I'm going to do is just squeeze it down. As you can see, the seal it's made. Now, the little groove I've cut into my glass, I've just lifted it on the edge of the piston, just slightly. And what that's going to do for me is it's going to make it easier for me to squirt the water in. So I've got some water here. This is where you really do have to be careful. You have to get this measurement right, because this will cause you problems if you don't. I've got 10 cc's of water here. I'm going to hold it in and I'm just going to squeeze slowly into the little hole. Now, I have seen people use like holes in the middle, but the problem is it gets very difficult. This is the easiest way I found to do it. Now, water tension is going to be your problem. This is why you do need that angle. So that's 10 cc's. Now, I know mine is exactly 20. That's what it says on the pistons, but I also double checked it just for my own sake. I'm going to hold it again. I don't know if, well, actually I won't hold it because my hand's getting in the way. Hopefully this will work. This shouldn't really cause us a problem. Now, yeah, this is the problem now, because we've got a slight little air pocket there, but I know that my piston dome is 20 cc's. If I held it down there, I wouldn't have this air pocket. This is why I'm saying water tension is an absolute nightmare. So you do need that angle off. That is how you do it. What I suggest you do is you get 2 syringes. I've got, like I said, one 10 milliliters and one 5. And once you can squirt, obviously the first one in quite quickly, but then just go 1 milliliter at a time. And even half a milliliter is crucial. So you need to be very precise at this point. Mine is 20 cc's. That's what they are. Simple as that. So that is how you test. I'm just going to take all this out now just to make it easier, because I don't want this to go everywhere. So we'll just suck it out as we go. Now it should be okay now. Just lift that up, move that out of the way, and we'll just suck up the water. Now you do need to make sure this is clean, get all the grease off. That kind of goes without saying. So that's how you get your dome or your piston cc. So we've wrote on our form 20 cc. Now I'm going to show you on the calculator, but depending on what calculator you use, you might need to use a minus or a plus, but the calculator will tell you all that, and I'll go through that on the calculator. But we only need one more measurement now, which is our head cc. Now I know my head cc is 45.5, but again, I go quick. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to quickly show you how to do it, and it's exactly the same as this. You turn your head upside down and you do exactly the same. So I'll show you that on the head. Sorted. So what you need to make sure is, again, make sure your head's tilted or slanted to one side, because honestly, it just makes it easier for you. Make sure your spark plug is in, and make sure all your valves are down. If your valves are lifted up like they are here, the water will go through, no good. If you've got no spark plug there, again, water will go through, no good. And again, I suggest you check it on each one. If your head's been skimmed a few times, this obviously will change. So this is why it's very important to get these numbers right. And again, do exactly the same thing. Put some grease over the lip here. Our piece of plastic again. Now, as you can see, these are in the way. This is not sitting level, so you just might need to move it. And pull down, push down on there, let the grease seal, and squirt the water inside here. Let it fill up. And again, that's the thing. You need something obviously you can see through to make it easy, but you need to make sure there's no air bubbles. I know once I do this, this is 45.5 cc's. So I know that I'm not going to do it because it's just messy, but do it in each one. They have to make sure they're right. If they're not right, you maybe got your heads warped, or you got another issue somewhere. So you need to make sure they're all the same. And again, it is crucial. Don't rush this. Even if you have to go over it 3 or 4 times to make sure you've got it right, do not rush this, because if you get this wrong, even by half of a cc, it's going to affect your calculations at the end. And if you get it wrong, your engine can go bang. So it's vitally important you get this right. Right, so once we've got all the numbers, and like I said, just take your time. Even if you have to measure 3 or 4 times just to be sure, measure everything, every cylinder, everything, just to be, you know, double sure, because this is crucial. This is so crucial, it's not even funny. Right, the only thing that can change is your head gasket. Because obviously once you measure your stroke, once you measure your thingies, they can't change. That's set. So what you need to then do is you need to find out what thickness of head gaskets you can get, because you can change this number so you can work out whether your compression ratio is too high, too low, or whatever the case may be. So once we have all this, now my compression ratio is 8.02, which is absolutely fine for what I need. My original compression ratio is 8:1, but I mean, once you've skimmed your head and once you've done that a few times, your compression ratio will change. You just don't know it, but I can assure you, you know, 8.02 is going to be 100% fine. Even though we're putting big boosts through it, it's not going to be an issue, I can assure you. So what we're going to do next is we're going to go on the computer, and you're going to see when I put this information in to what it shows. You do have to be very careful, however, and again, I'll go through it with you on the computer. Your deck height, if you've got your pistons protruding, that has to be a minus number. If you just type in that number without the minus, you're going to have a completely different ratio. And your piston volume, depending on which online one you use, that might be a plus or a minus. It just depends on how they work it out. But we'll go through that online. But what you need to do is, you need to find out a couple of different thicknesses of your head gasket. Like for example, this is a 1.8 mil. Now the 1.5 mil is on my gasket, the bore diameter is still the same, but obviously the thickness is different. So on the 1.5 mil, this is 0.05. And the 1.8 mil, this is 0.07. So you need to know how many or how thick your head gaskets can get. Once you know what head gaskets you can get, you can change this number here, and you can work out if your compression ratio is too big or too high, or whatever the case may be. You can work it out very simple. So the next time you're going to see, or the next part of this video is going to be me on the computer showing you how to go through this. Sorted. Right, so here you are. This is the one I'm happen to be using. Like I said, there's loads of different ones out there. They all more or less do the same. Well, they all do the same thing. You just have to be paying attention to where it is marked down here, as you can see where it says note and all that. That's very important, where you just need to look at that before you put your values in, just so you know where to go, pluses and minuses and things like that. It's very straightforward, but you just don't want to put the wrong the wrong measurements in now, because it will absolutely cause you serious problems. So the first thing we need to do is number of cylinders. Now we've got a 4-cylinder engine, so that's very straightforward. Next thing is our bore. Now our bore is 3.61. Now again, this is in inches, so you need to get your measurements converted over if you've done it in millimeters. Next one is stroke, so it's 3.03. Now next one is chamber volume. So that is our head basically, and our head is, where's our head on a piece of paper, 45.5 cc's. Thickness of head gasket. Now this is where, as you can see, it does also say down here, if I can just highlight this, it says this is what you have to be careful of. you know, the compressed head gasket thickness, not the head gasket thickness. This is where you can get caught out very, very easily. So we've got 1.8 mil, which is 0.07, so 0.07. We have a metal head gasket, so we're okay with that. Next we need to do is the head gasket bore. Now our head gasket bore is 0.64. Our deck height. Now this is where you have to be careful again. So I just highlight where it says deck height here. Positive number if below deck, negative number, negative above. So in other words, if your piston is sticking below, you have to put a positive in front of it. If your piston is sticking up, you have to put a negative. If your piston is completely flat, you just write 0.00. We have piston sticking up, so that's what we need to do is negative 0.03. Very simple. Now it is vitally important you get that right, and I'm going to show you. Let's just say you didn't put that in. Well, actually, I'll show you what it is properly first, and then I'll show you what can happen if you don't get it right. Now, a piston type. Do you have a flat top, a dished, or dome? We have a dish type. So, and again, if you go to volume here, where it says pistons type, it is basically doing it for you, so we don't have to worry about button plus or minuses because we've told it it's a dish type, so it knows, and it's 20 cc. And very, very simply, you just, oh, I put 200 cc, that's going to make a big difference. So, here we go. What do we get? Now, we get 0.82 to 1. 200 or 2033 cc, so obviously we've got slightly bigger piston, so we've upped the cc a little bit, but again, that compression ratio is 100% fine. It is not going to cause us any problems. Now, let's just say if you forgot to put that little dash in, so let's just put it as 0 and see what happens. As we can see, our compression ratio goes to 7.16. so this is why it's very, very important to get that right. And let's say we went completely wrong and put a plus on it, and then go calculate. Oh, that obviously is that has calculated the plus, so that's fair enough. So, you know, this is where it's vitally important. So we're just going to put that back to what it should be. And press calculate again. Now, I'm going to show you how important it is to get the actual cc volume right of your head. So mine's 45.5. Let's imagine if you just quickly did it and you put 45 in, the half doesn't really matter. As you can see, it goes to 8.07. So, you know, you do have to get it right. But the best thing about this is if you know what head gasket or what head gaskets are available for your car, before you order a head gasket, you can work out what head gasket you need. For example, let's say if I use my original head gasket, which was 1.5 mil, which is 0.05, and let's see what the compression, as you can see, the compression ratio shoots up to 8.3, which is big. So the beauty with this is if you know what different size head gaskets you can get, you can start putting numbers in and seeing what would actually work or what wouldn't work. See, that's a different head gasket again. As you can see, the numbers go down. So providing you know, if you can get 5 or 6 different head gaskets, you can start putting the numbers in here, and before you order anything, you can work out what size head gaskets you need. Because this is the way I worked it out. I had 4 or 5 different thicknesses of head gaskets I knew I could get, and I was putting the numbers in until I got one to match the best, and the 1.8 mil for me was the closest, which is 0.07, and as you can see, that brings it back to 8.2. Now, you do have to be aware that when you change your head gaskets, you need to make sure the head gasket bore is the same. Now, on all these metal head gaskets that I could find for my particular engine, the bore of the head gasket remains the same. It's only the thickness of the head gasket which is different. So yeah, you know, very, very simply, you can just put the numbers in here, press it, bang, sorted. You know what head gasket you need. You just know absolutely everything. It's just, it can take a bit to get these numbers correct, especially if you need to get the head gasket compressed thickness and all that sort of stuff. But like I said, I'm not going to know any of that, so you know, don't be emailing me or messaging me saying how much would my, because I mean, I honestly don't know. Every head gasket is going to be different, every engine is going to be different, and it's going to be impossible for me to know. But the manufacturer or whoever you buy it off, they should know what it does. And like I said, all the really good quality head gaskets, the good quality pistons, they have everything marked on the box. So, you know, all the guessing is taken out. But that is it. So as we can see, we are we are seriously happy with that. 8.02, which, I mean, is, you know, it's as close as you're going to get. There is nothing absolutely in the world wrong with that. So yeah, let's just see what would happen if we had a flat top piston with, obviously that would be 0 because you can't have any. What would that? Oh, we have to put 0.0, 0.00. What would that, just for the crack now? 10.7, which then 20 cc's not having that dish piston. Look how much the compression ratio goes up. It goes to 10-1 from 8-1. Well, it actually goes 10.5. It goes up massive. So it is vitally important you get all this right. Let's just put it back before I end. So we go dished 20 cc, bang, and there's our, oh, that's 200. 3.1. I think we need a bit more compression than that. And there we go. So that's as simple as that. I will put the link to this calculator in the description of the video, but you can see it's at the top here, so you know it's very easy to get to. Just be aware of, whichever one you go to, be aware of you get your pluses and minuses and that type of thing in the right place, because otherwise you're going to cause yourself serious problems. So that's it really. Look, hope it helps. Thumbs up and subscribe and do all that. And don't forget, you know, if you want to join me on Facebook, I'll leave the link below to my Facebook, my Instagram and all that. And if you want to support us on the anti-lag GoFundMe project for the Transit, that would be much appreciated too. But most importantly, don't forget, get your hands dirty. We'll see you for the next one.